Hey everyone, thanks for tuning back in. This is the year 2 of the Turkey OG series, back by popular demand, and I'm very thankful to have, it's weird to say again, for the second year in a row, that Mark Drury is my co-host for a Turkey OG series on Deercast. Thanks, Mark, for lining some of these up and making this happen the way that you have. So I'm happy to be here again.
Man, I'm so happy to be doing this again because I get to talk to all of my heroes, Curt. And the first one this year is one of my all-time heroes. He's one of my favorite people in the whole industry. We've got Harold Knight with us this year, and I can't tell you what Harold has meant to myself and Terry and turkey hunters all around the country. He and David started Knight Hale game calls back in 1972. They started doing it full-time in 1984, and I don't think you could find a turkey hunter or a deer hunter in the country that wouldn't know the name Harold Knight of Knight and Hale game calls, and it's just a real honor to have him on the podcast with us. So, Harold, welcome, sir.
Listen, it is an honor to be on anything with Mark Drury. I want you to know that, boy.
Buddy, the honor is ours. Curt, I bet you, Harold, have you ever heard the term OG?
Yes.
Okay, so you know what OG stands for in Original Gangster.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, well, you're one of them, buddy.
I love that, Harold, because when we first did this series, and I was talking with Mark, I'm like, yeah, we could call it the Turkey OG series. And I think at one point, Mark, you're like, what does OG mean again? Just remind me. And I'm like, it's like it doesn't really apply to turkey hunting, but it's the vibe of what the name is. People understand what we're talking about. So I just love it because I don't think anyone's done anything like this, as far as like, Turkey OG or Deer Hunter OG series or anything like that. So it's fun. But I love that he knows that. And Mark, we talked, my favorite thing about it is that you don't have Zoom, Harold. So we're just doing this through cell phone or landline. And that's probably the best thing about it.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I understand.
So, Harold, tell us a little bit about back in the day. How did you and David decide to do Knight and Hale game calls, or what was the inspiration behind that?
Terry, Mark, what we did, I guess the way we got started was through a magazine article. Dave Harbor, who was contributing editor of Sports magazine back in the 70s, and I met Dave in Land Between the Lakes. And David Hale had a little tube call I made around his neck. And Dave Harbor, which most all old turkey hunters knew, he was one of the best turkey writers I thought that ever wrote for wild turkey. And he was very intrigued about this little tube call, and he said, where can I get one? And David said, the man that I'm waiting for him to come out of the woods here. And I never came out of the woods that day. I stayed with him all day hunting, and he came to see me after that afternoon, and I gave him one of these calls. And he killed a turkey with it the next day, which was one of 3 turkeys killed in the state of Kentucky that year. Now, you got to remember, this is back in 1971.
Oh, wow.
So one of 3 turkeys in the entire state.
That's correct. And, the state of Kentucky had their first season in 1960. And I was 16 years old, and I hunted that season and killed a turkey. And it got to where we didn't, just wasn't many turkeys. And that was before the restoration program began. And it just wasn't many turkeys.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark, being as you have lots of pads from Missouri, Dave and I had a goal. We wanted to make enough money to go to Missouri turkey hunt.
I'll be doggone. It's the exact same reason Terry and I started Drury Outdoors when we did. We just wanted to make enough money to go on some out-of-state turkey hunts. I never knew that about you, Harold, but that's
right.
Why we started.
Yeah, we wanted to go to Missouri, and we finally made enough money after a few years, and we went to Missouri turkey hunting. And I love Missouri turkey hunting just like you do. the gobbling turkeys, and old Missouri come through for Kentucky a lot, helping us with a restoration program. And we put them big old gobbling Missouri turkeys in Kentucky with what few turkeys we had, and they exploded. And, the restoration program has been absolutely great for wild turkey. And that was the way we got started, was with Dave Harbor. And, the story now is like you and Terry, y'all you couldn't start all at once. You had to start a little at a time, and that's what we did. We didn't have any money. Money was, back in those days, pretty scarce. And we had to do the best we could on advertising and developing products and things like that.
And when do you feel like it really took off for you, Harold? Where it was?
Well, it really took off, Mark, in the middle 80s. We came out with a deer call, and we were selling hundreds of thousands of them to deer calls in a short period of time. And then we had some products which the Fighting Purr was a multi-million-dollar deal in sales, and we had some products that really helped us along, like the old yellow product, the friction call we had, and things like that. That really helped. But the deer call, I would say, was the number one seller for us.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the double cluck goose call was a good seller for us. And we came out with one of the first short reed goose calls, and it was on the market, and that really helped a lot too. But you don't start a business just all at once. You have to grow into it, and that's what Dave and I did. We grew into it, and we were selling several deer calls to Walmart, Bass Pro, and the same people that you and Terry do business with. And I tell you what, it grew and it grew. I tell you what, it snowballed. It grew so fast. If you don't watch, what you pray for, you can't handle it. And that's just about the way we were. But anyway, and going to the SHOT Show in Vegas, which you've been to many a time, we was there, and we had two people to come in the late 90s that wanted to buy us. And I told them, both of them, we were not for sale. And one of them reminded me, said, everything's for sale. I said, you got a point there, but you're going to have to come to Cadiz, Kentucky to talk about it. And they did. And we sold out, in the late 90s, and to a company in Birmingham, Alabama, are really from Fort Smith, Arkansas, but the owners live in Birmingham. They made fish bait, Tradco, and it's still one of the biggest fish bait companies out there. But anyway, that's basically how we got started, when we got started, and how we sold our company.
That's like really the American dream, is like build something from nothing, and then to just to be able to do something like that. So that's really, really cool to hear. And one thing I was curious was, you said you killed that turkey in 1960 in Kentucky. And I was just wondering, you were 16 years old. Before that season opened, what was turkey hunting high on your radar? Is it something that you had thought about a lot prior to that season opening?
Absolutely, because where I lived in land between the lakes. That's in the western part of Kentucky. That's between the Tennessee River and the Cumberland River. And they made a national recreation out of it now. But that's where I was born and raised. And they've had wild turkeys there, they say, ever since man, that they can remember. Mm-hmm. And where I live joined the old Kentucky Woodland National Wildlife Refuge. And naturally, the turkeys were hunted then illegally because they never had a season. And the old timers, I would get around them and let them tell me about the stories. And I'd ask them, I said, let me use your box call. Let me just yelp on it once. And most of the old calls then, if you could afford one, was the old Gibson box call. And not many people had that, but some of the old turkey hunters had that. They turkey hunted, had been turkey hunting for years and years. And I got in with some of them, and they taught me a lot of stuff. But, you know, after hunting all these years, 60-plus years, and hunting as many thousands of days I have, I realize now that they didn't know that much, and I didn't know anything. But they did manage to kill turkeys, and they did manage to let me go with them and talk to them, you know, and they teach me, you know, and I was really, really on fire about turkey hunting, and I was so glad when they had that first season. Man, alive, I can't wait. I can't believe we're going to have a turkey season. And I can remember it like it's yesterday. I'm the only man living that killed a turkey that first year because I was young. But it was 12 turkeys killed, and that was in 1960.
I'll be doggone. How about that for some roots, Curt? I mean, it shows you how far back Harold goes. And if you listen to his comment about, you know, they didn't know a lot about it and he knew less. Well, if you look at a lot of the techniques in today's turkey hunting, Harold was one of the guys that discovered a lot of this stuff. And you can ask anyone that's ever walked the woods with Harold Knight, and the first thing they come out about him, number one, he's just the most incredible gentleman you ever meet. But number two, the next thing they're going to tell you is that man is absolute wicked death in the woods when it comes to turkeys. He's just one of the best turkey hunters in our country because he's done it for so long. He understands the bird. He understands what he needs to do to have them alive in terms of habitat improvement management, but he also understands how to hunt them and harvest wild turkeys. So, Harold, maybe through your experiences, have you seen the turkeys themselves change in the manner in which you have to hunt now versus call it the 70s, 80s, 90s? Like, have you seen any evolution and major changes, or are you just getting better through time, or do you think the turkeys are changing right now?
Oh, I definitely think the turkeys has changed. I think what has changed them too, Mark, is pressure. You know, anytime you put pressure on a wild animal, especially a wild turkey, you know, he imprints that. And buddy, I'm gonna tell you something. I've always said, you call me up a Jake and miss him, he's gonna act like a 3 or 4-year-old the next time you fool with him. Yep. And the same thing with a 2-year-old gobbler, which that's what I like to hunt, a 2-year and older, and a mature gobbler. And, you know, it's amazed me how much smarter they get from one year to the next. But if you throw the pressure in on them, which is in lots of places you have to hunt now, public hunting areas especially, and even private places, it puts lots of pressure on them. It changes the wild turkey. And I've experienced getting to hunt all the species of turkeys that the eastern wild turkey, to me, is the wildest. And some geographical areas in the United States is the wildest. One of them is in Land Between the Lakes. You have one in Alabama that's extremely wild. I guess every state has places where they're wild, but them two that really come to mind with me, it's been, they won't tolerate any kind of movement or nothing.
Just from density of human pressure, that's the main impact on them?
It could be, and you know, another thing too, you know, some of these turkeys are just different. Now, we have eastern wild turkey in this part of the United States, but some of the species, some of the eastern wild turkey are even a little different. And, you know, I just like Missouri, for example. That's a big old gobbling turkey. He'll weigh 22 to 3 or 4 pounds, sometimes 5. And you go to Alabama, you know, you get an 18, 20-pound gobbler. That's a big gobbler. He's a little different, you know. And here in Kentucky, we have turkeys been brought in here through the trapping system from Mississippi and Missouri. And, you know, it gives the breed of them is totally, you know, the one from Mississippi is totally different from the one they brought in from Missouri. The one from Mississippi and Alabama, beard is real small, And Mark knows how thick that big old gobbler's beard is in Missouri and Iowa. It's just different. But I think pressure really changes a lot of turkeys. I really do. I think pressure makes them just a lot harder to hunt, and you have to change your technique. But folks, let me tell you something. It's been a lot of change in turkey hunting in just the last few years. There's so many techniques that's come out. It's changed turkey hunting. From decoys to blinds to cameras to take inventory with them. I can sit in my house now and tell you what time a gobbler is going to show up in a field. And, it's just things like that that's changed. Your shells, your guns. It's just a lot different than it used to be. And fanning. It's so many things that's changed over the years, and certainly it probably changed the turkey too. But one thing we do have that really helped, a resource of the wild turkey has been plentiful the last few years. And I'm going to tell you something. I think a lot of people have took that for granted. We can lose them as quick as we gain them. Mm-hmm. And we've got to take care of these turkeys. And Mark touched on something a while ago that I love to do is put food plots out. I love to put out stuff for the wild turkey and the deer. And it's part of my job. It's part of my duty to put out stuff like that and try to help the wild turkey. I tell people I'm mad as the devil at them in April, but I love them all the rest of the time. I'm trying to help them.
Yeah, and I love that.
I love to see those little poults out there, and I just love to see the young turkeys and try to get as many wild turkeys as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's why I phrased that earlier that way, because I think your true turkey hunter, regardless if it's their first year or their 63rd year or whatever it is. How many seasons is this going to be for you, Harold? 63 or 4 or maybe more?
About 64 years.
Okay, 64. So whether it's their first year or their 64th year, a true turkey hunter and someone that's got it in their heart and in their soul and their passion, they're just as worried about keeping them alive and helping them as they are making one dead on April the 20th or whatever it is, just like Harold said there. Like, I think that's an evolution you're seeing us go through right now as populations in some parts of the country are a little bit stressed. You're starting to see more and more people do things for habitat improvement, nest predator control, food plots, everything they can to make sure that we've got turkeys for the next generation. Because Harold's right, easy come, easy go. I was talking to many people at the Federation this weekend, people from Arkansas. Oh, we used to hear 5, 10, 15 turkeys a morning, and now there's not a turkey within 3 counties of me, those types of stories. So we've got to do our part to make sure that this fragile resource doesn't vanish from the landscape.
I heard the same thing, Mark, on different geographic areas in the country where they're down on turkeys. Even my own state of Kentucky here, we've got areas that are down. And they're trying to put a study on to see what the problem is. They asked me, and I said, it could be a combination of a lot of things. I'm a big time believer in predator control. Mm-hmm. And what I'm fixing to do now is start trapping coons and possums and coyotes and bobcats and skunks. And what I do, the pelt has got no value to it now like it used to. And people don't trap them like they used to. What I do, I get a guy to come in and I say, I'm going to give you so much for a possum. I'm going to give you so much for that coon and coyote and bobcat if you'll catch them. And get them away, because so many nest predators out there now. These old hens are having a tough time making it 28 days before something breaks them up.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's the number one problem. I mean, I hear a lot of the different theories on what's going wrong, but to me, that is the number one problem is predation and nest predation, and we're doing our best to control that on my properties, and we've seen a dramatic increase in poults and hatches and successful nesting just from doing that simple step right there. Like I think that's the number one problem out there, in my opinion.
I agree 100% with you. I think it's a big problem, and we don't have the coon hunters here like we used to in the state of Kentucky and a lot of the other states here around Tennessee. We just don't have them like we used to because it's just like bird hunting, quail hunting. We don't have the quail and the people to hunt them because we don't have none. But we got lots of coons, but I think the reason a lot of people hunted them back a few years ago was because they could sell the pelts and make some extra money. And there's no price at all on those now. It's way down.
Harold, something I did want to ask you, you are a pioneer of modern turkey hunting or just turkey hunting in general, which is, I love hearing like those stories of like when a season, you didn't have a season in the first year a season opened. That's hard for me to even like wrap my head around experiencing. I'm 32, so I've never had like a deer season or a turkey season be introduced. You know what I mean? It's always just kind of been around. So maybe a little bit I could take it for granted in a way because I've never not had it, if that makes sense. But in the evolution of turkey hunting, is there certain things that you're not so fond of or that you're fond of? Because you've seen it from zero to what it is now. Like, is there certain stuff you could see us do without or something we need to do more of?
Well, I think the bag limit on turkeys in some states is too many. I personally think the bag limit in Alabama at 5 turkeys is too many. And I think they've cut it down some. The state of Tennessee had 4 bag limit, and they cut it to 2 this year. And another thing, one of my pet peeves, when I take a lot of people with me turkey hunting. I very seldom get to shoot turkeys anymore, but I usually take somebody every day of the season. I try to take some people that's never killed a turkey. And I always tell them, I said, and when 2 turkeys come up, and it's nothing but 3 or 4 gobblers come up in the first of the hunting season. And most of them are probably brothers or out of the same hatch. And they'd be 2-year-old and be strutting. And I said, I do not shoot and kill 2 turkeys at one shot. I do not like that at all. I said, shoot 1 turkey, wait till he gets to the side. I try to coach him. Now you shoot that turkey when you're not shooting into a bunch of them. Because, this is my hunting place, and I want some turkeys to hunt the rest of the season. You try to shoot them all the first day, and which is against the law anyway in Kentucky. I shoot that 1 turkey, and that's what a lot of them will do. I've watched a lot of them. I had some grandkids, and I was proud of them. They'd wait till that turkey get off, and then they'd shoot him, and I was real proud of that. And some other things too. I like to take the youth, and see them. And I think about you was talking about while doing the first season I ever went to, and then taking somebody now. I used to hear 1 turkey gobble. That made my day. I'm talking about that, and it made my week. If I see a turkey track, oh my gosh, here's a turkey. Look at this scratching here. Now, I tell you, we sort of spoil these kids a little bit. I take my grandkids or take these kids out there, if they're not successful, they think they failed. I said, man, enjoy it. That's what I like to tell them to do. Enjoy hunting. Don't put the pressure on you to have to kill. Enjoy it. Listening to turkeys gobble. Some of the most memorable turkey hunts I've had, I didn't kill anything, but enjoy it. And that's what I've learned to do right now, and tell people to enjoy it, by golly, and quit putting the pressure on they got to kill a turkey.
I do love that. I think the internet probably puts a lot of pressure on people so they can post it or whatever. Not everybody's different, and some people don't care, but I think that's where a lot of unnecessary pressure comes, where someone like maybe loses sight of enjoying it, even if they don't come home with anything.
Absolutely. I enjoy, believe it or not, I love to hear the redbirds and whippoorwills in the spring of the year. If you don't like that, you're missing out on some things. I'm telling you, those to me, I go to some states I go to, I don't hear no whippoorwills or redbirds, but here in the eastern part of the United States, a lot of the places I hunt, you hear the whippoorwill and the redbirds, and that's part of spring turkey hunting to me.
Well, yeah. I agree so wholeheartedly on that whippoorwill, man. I remember when I was a kid just starting out, I was probably 13 or 14 on my first turkey hunts, and Paul Sexar back in the day told me, he said, you listen to those whippoorwills, and about the time they slow down and stop, that's about when the turkeys start gobbling. And I've never forgot that. And he was dead right on that. You know,
that's right on target.
It's one of those sounds of spring you just don't ever forget. Well, Harold, as you're talking about the pressure turkeys these days that we have, what are a few things that you do to a guy that's out there having a little trouble with them? What are some of the things that you're pulling out of your mind in terms of what am I going to do today to get this turkey in on a high pressured area with a bird that you feel like is pressured? What are some tricks of the trade for you?
You know, Mark, I like to know what transition that turkey's in and what state I'm hunting. And you've hunted many different states where you might leave one state, then one transition, go to another, and they're totally different. And know what transition these turkeys in will help you some, too, to what you do. In other words, you know the first of the season that you can get by with a lot of calling, a lot of power calling. And you can cut and just really do a lot of power calling. And as that season progresses on, at the end of the season, it seems like my calling gets lower and softer, you know. And there used to be, where I hunted some of these states, that last part of the season when that old hen was setting, now not laying eggs, but setting, when she's actually setting for that 28 days, seemed like these turkeys got lonesome. They's easier to call up. But I've seen a change in that in the last few years because of hunting pressure. And they're not as vocal, seems like, as they used to be. I'm still, it's lots of turkeys, but they're still in that hen setting. They don't seem to be gobbling as crazy as they used to. So, but anyway, if I could tell somebody some tips, it'd be, know what transition you're in, and on your calling, and don't be afraid to master different type calls. I'm a firm believer in our mouth calls and your tube calls and your glass calls. I like to use every one of them in a box call at times. And if I could use a trumpet call like some people, like Mark Prudhomme, I'd use it. That's one of the better sounds I've heard. It's that little soft sound. But a lot of times, calling is 100% of it, and a lot of times it's 0%. It's your woodsmanship. A lot of times it really helps you get that gobbler.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the tip. If I could tell, too, a young hunter that have lots of them ask me how to get started, turkey, what do I need to do? If you show me a young hunter that's a good squirrel hunter, learn to squirrel hunt. It teaches him to slip around. It teaches him to pick up sign and learn to listen and watch for squirrel in a tree and how to shoot with his gun good and all that. It's just a good teacher to be a good turkey hunter. And I'm going to tell you, if I could tell one good tip for a turkey, somebody wants to be a better turkey hunter, I'd tell them this. You start year-round on learning all you can about a wild turkey, what he eats year-round, where he roosts year-round, where his range is year-round, and just following from the day he hatches till he gets to be a duck gobbler. And if you'll do that, and I guarantee you it's going to help you be a better hunter. Why do they like to be around the rivers and creeks? Why do they like to roost over water? How many days do they sit on the nest? When do they start setting in my area where I'm hunting? Learn all that, and you'll just be a better turkey hunter.
Boy, those truer words have never been spoken, and I think sometimes that stuff gets overlooked. And I remember when I learned how to turkey hunt, I was learning from the likes of Harold Knight. I would go to sit in his seminars, or Ben Lee, or Ray I, learn from those guys that have been there,
mm-hmm.
and get your hands on every piece of literature you can. I think so many people try to get the quick way, the easy way out, and they read an Instagram post and they think they know everything they need to know about turkey hunting, or if they watch a video or a TV show, they think they've got it all. But in reality, it's almost like going back in school, like you had textbooks where you learn from to become better at whatever subject you were in. I think turkey hunting is a lot like that. There's certain books that every turkey hunter should read and reread because there's such good information out there. And some of these books date back to the early 1900s. There was stuff written back then that is mind-blowing how good it was and how accurate it was. And if you're a student to the turkey and the hunting of the turkey, you're going to end up being a much better hunter the rest of your life.
And Mark,
I agree with that's correct, 100%. Mark, you're responsible for putting out good turkey videos, and y'all got some good stuff on your videos, and all that stuff now wasn't available when I first started. And these young kids now can go pick up these videos and look at them and learn what the wild turkey sounds like, not what somebody tells you it sounds like. And so many things that you can do now with videos and on YouTube and stuff that you couldn't do a few years ago.
Yeah, to add on that, I learned a lot from videos growing up, and I think too, it's like even reading books and watching videos, something to throw in on is like you actually have to go and then apply what you learned in the field to like really learn it, and it just takes time, and that's the fun part of it is learning.
Yeah, when I started turkey hunting, I went to the people that was turkey hunting, had been turkey hunting, even though it wasn't no season. But I sat down and I couldn't wait till they come home from work or go to talk to them and let them tell me. And I caught that bug at an early age, and it's had a hold of me ever since. And now then, if these young kids, I guarantee you, if you go and ask a veteran turkey hunter in your area where you live, would you help me in my calling? Would you help me learn how to turkey hunt? Every one of them would absolutely love to help you. Mm-hmm. And that's the turkey hunter for you.
He's right in that. And that's a great segue into a story that I want to share on this podcast. But when I was starting Mad Calls, of course, I'd been calling from the mid '80s, so I'm starting Mad Calls now in the mid '90s. So a decade later, I decided to do Mad, and of course, I'd call every weekend in a lot of different parts of the country. And when you do that, you're around these same people every weekend for about 2.5, 3 months. All us callers were real tight, Harold being one of them, which at that point, Harold wasn't calling nearly as much anymore. He was judging in a lot of them, but I was around Harold a lot. And I was around Preston a lot, and around Dick Kirby, and around Will Primos, and a lot of the guys that had calling companies. And when I started Mad, I reached out to all these different companies. I was a little naive because I was about to go into business against these guys, but I viewed them all as my friends because I just felt friendly with them. Well, there was only 2 people that offered to help us when we started Mad Calls. One of them, well, 3 people. Harold and David helped me and Tad, and so did Preston Pittman. Those 2 literally sent us list of vendors, told us how to do this. Harold invited me down to the plant so I could see how stuff was made. I mean, that's what type of camaraderie we had. But none of the other companies offered that. So I wanted to share that story. It just goes to show you what a true, unbelievable gentleman Harold is, and his partner David. I mean, they just took me in and showed me the whole factory, showed me how stuff was made, offered me vendor contacts. I mean, stuff that I couldn't have done in a month of Sundays if I'd had to done it on my own. So I'll never forget that, and I'm forever grateful for that.
I was going to ask you, Mark, how awkward it was.
It wasn't because I assumed they would do it, but once I got a bunch of no's back, I realized how precious it was that Preston and Harold did. And then, through time, I've appreciated it even more, if that makes sense. So it's like I said, I was a bit naive back then. I was probably about 29, 30 years old. And I guess I didn't realize that I was asking for the secret, recipe behind some of these calls and whatnot. But they were nice enough to help me.
Well, I've judged you, Mark, in the contest, and I've listened to you. You're a dang good caller, and I know good callers. I've been around a lot of them. I've judged a lot of world contests and Grand Nationals, and you're a good caller. And I was going to iterate on something too. Some of my best friends, it was some of my competition when I went to in game call business. I love them. I'm not joking. I like all these guys. My gosh, You take from Woodhaven to Dick Kirby. Dick Kirby was a friend of mine. And all these people like Preston Pittman, Eddie Salter, just all these people like that there, I think the world of them. My gosh. If you don't, listen, it's easy to run your competition down, but I'm going to tell you something. We're a small industry. We need to build each other up instead of running each other down. And that's been my thought on all this for years.
Well, he lived it. I mean, he's not just saying it. He did it for me and Tad, and I'll never forget it. So Harold, if you've got in your mind, what's a mistake you see people make wild turkey hunting? Something that you could possibly tell a new hunter or someone that's been hunting a little bit what to avoid doing. Don't do this.
Well, I see several things I look back that I done when I was a young hunter, Mark, and one of them is movement. Yep. You know that a wild turkey can see so good, and he's not going to tolerate you moving. You're going to have to hide, enough to blend in, and just don't move. And another thing is, know what transition these turkeys in, how loud you're going to call. I think a lot of times we call a little too loud and too often. And, a turkey can hear so much better than we think. And he can pinpoint you so much better than you think. And the most thing that I can tell people is patience. Buddy, have patience. And that will help you so much. Is just knowing when you sit there and sit there till you can't sit there and you're going to kill more turkeys. But now there's times you've got to be real aggressive. I'm trying to tell you, you just can't sit there. You got to be real aggressive sometimes. And that's the reason you got to know what transition these turkeys in and just how you need to hunt them. But my gosh, you got lots of good stuff to use now. Calls are much better, Mark. You know that now. We didn't have any calls when I started hunting. Very few. And now you got the shells better. You got guns better. And you got your cameras are out there. You tell you what you take inventory for you. But if I could tell somebody the movement is where I've messed up more than anything and not sitting there long enough.
It's cool to hear that because it seems obvious when you say it, but I think people overlook a lot of that, like the little obvious stuff at times.
Yeah. Blinds right now has helped people to make sit there because they won't get out of that blind. They sit there. I have to sit in a blind some with people and don't mind if it's windy or raining or something like that, or, where I have to around fields or something. But my favorite way to hunt wild turkeys would be running and gunning, they call it, is going to the turkey and getting as close to him as you can and calling him and setting up and trying to outsmart him. And Mark knows by filming turkeys, it's a different thing too, when you got that extra movement there. But we've learned how to cover up and hide from these turkeys and film them. So and Mark certainly has, so they got some good stuff.
I love it.
It's definitely a difference in how many are in on that particular turkey out. If it's you and one other person, that's great. But if there's 4 or 5, sometimes I feel like it's a spectator sport. You get in a group situation where everybody wants to go because maybe people are tagged out or whatever it is, and you don't want to deny them that moment. So you got to figure out how to get several people hidden someday.
I've been
Harold,
there.
Yeah, Harold can relate to that.
I sure can. It's tough. The more you got, the tougher it is.
Harold, when you look back from your first season in 1960 to now, just looking back on basically the industry you've helped pioneer and been a major part of, like, did you ever think it would ever pan out the way that it did?
No. There's no way I could comprehend what I would see and get to hunt and get to go over the years. I'd be hunting in Montana maybe, or Wyoming, some of the western states, New Mexico. I hunted all of them. But, I think about the first time I went turkey hunting. I said, I can't even imagine that this would come to this. And I can tell you the first turkey I ever called up, I missed him by 50 foot. I was scared to death. And if you know what a huckleberry bush is, and you got them in Missouri and some of the states, Kentucky and Tennessee and these hills, that old gobbler comes strutting through them huckleberry bushes. I could hear his wings dragging and making that, and I didn't know what in the world was going on. And I had a double-barrel shotgun and one barrel to shoot and one wouldn't. And I looked at the turkey one this way and shot the other way. I'm telling you what, and run every step of the way back to the house. I was scared to death. And, but anyway, that probably, just set me on fire. I mean, it just give me that disease, I call it, where I wanted to go and turkey hunt every day.
Yeah.
I mean, it just set me on fire. And of course, I didn't know anything about turkey hunting then. I called that turkey up, showed you it don't take much to call one up, because I had a little bit of scratch call an old man made me, and I put a little piece of chalk on it, and it made halfway a little hen call. But my gosh, I can remember that. Now them's the kind of things I remember. It's lots of hunts, good hunts I've been on I can't remember. I've probably watched over 1,500 turkeys killed. And, I can't, you see so many good things, you can't remember all of them.
That's a good life then.
Anyway, I tell you what, I have really been blessed. The good Lord's blessed me with good health. And I tell you what, folks, I don't take it for granted. I want you to know that.
Well, Harold, I was going to ask you when you were talking about that, like hearing that turkey drum, you're like, what in the world? I was going to ask you where your passion for turkey hunting comes from, what kept you in it so heavily. And that might have been the answer right there, but I'll continue to ask that question anyway. What kept you in it?
I can tell you what kept me in it is I never could figure them out. I never felt like I won the game, even though I killed and watched a lot of turkeys being killed. And to this day, I'll hunt this year if the good Lord's willing. They will humble me this year again. They've done it every year for 64 years, and I'm not. They're gonna do it again this year if I go, because I learn something every year, and I don't have all the answers. I got just a few of them, but man alive, there's so many variables out there in turkey hunting. I've always said I'd sit up at night, a lot of times thinking in bed, writing my speech out, what I'm going to do the next day. And every time I've done that, I changed my speech. So there's so many things can happen and so many variables out there. And that's the reason I love it. Just right there is because I've never figured it totally out.
That's cool, man.
This is just, Harold, I can't tell you how I've been smiling this whole podcast, just listening to your words of wisdom. And it reminds me of why I've always thought of you as one of the all-time greats, why I wanted you in this series with so many of my dear friends and my heroes. And I hope that it resonates with a lot of Curt's listeners, because I do think Curt's listeners are probably a younger group in a lot of ways, shape, or form. And it's nice for them to be able to connect to the guys that were heroes of mine and helped teach me when I was growing up. And I think, Curt, you can see through Harold's answers just what a wealth of knowledge he is, and what an extreme representation he is for conservationists and hunters all across the country. He's the grandfather, man.
Yeah, I love hearing it, Harold. Sorry, go ahead.
I've certainly got the age to be the old one, I can tell you that. But I'll tell you something about Mark and Terry. And I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. I know all the people in this industry, just about all of them. I've had dealings with all of them. If you find two guys that's any nicer than them two, they've been so nice to me and David over the years. They go out of the way to make sure they speak to us. And that I tell you what, they two fine gentlemen. I can tell you that. That's the reason they've been successful and going to continue to be successful.
Well, that means the world to me. Thank you. And I'll extend that to Terry, and our feelings are the same. And please tell David we love him.
I'll certainly do that.
Yeah, and Harold, for me, this has been a ton of fun. I love hearing like the old stories, you know, just a time that I couldn't even imagine. And I imagine most of our listeners will. I mean, we're shooting from 18 to 35 is like our major listening age group here, you know, so it's cool for me to hear these old stories and just like the evolution of everything. I'm fascinated by it. And just an industry that I'm just now getting the opportunity to work in. So it's cool getting to talk to someone who's like dedicated their life and pioneered, you know, turkey hunting in general, what it is today, and the industry. So I appreciate your time more than you know.
I tell you what, I tell you all, I appreciate the opportunity to get to talk to the turkey hunter. And Curt, I wish all the success in the world to your show, and Mark, and back me to do this. I tell you what, I'm indebted to you.
Well, we appreciate you. I want to share another story about Harold that I just found out last week, and this will, I think, really sums up why he was ordained from birth to be a turkey man. I was talking to him about the other day about Taylor, and he said, "How is Taylor?" And I said, "Well, she's expecting." He said, "When's she due?" I said, "April 21st. He said, "Well, if that baby's born on April 19th, I'm going to give that baby $100. And I said, "Is that your birthday, Harold?" And he said, "Yes, it is." He said, "Anybody I meet that's born on April 19th, I give them a $100 bill." And I said, "Man, from day one, you were a turkey man if you were born April the 19th. So I got the biggest kick out of that.
Well, that still goes, and I mean that too, Mark. April 19th, I've hunted many a day. I don't never remember missing hunting on April the 19th since 1960. So
that is, I mean, central for gobbling activity. I mean, you couldn't have a better day to have a birthday.
Absolutely. Yeah. At least I got a good excuse now to tell my wife. I said, "This is my birthday. I got to go turkey hunt."
It's meant to be. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
It is.
Now, Harold, you're probably going to have a lot of like, "Hey, I heard you on the Turkey OG series. My birthday is the 19th, and you're going to be handing out $100 bills. It's going to be a problem for you."
Yeah, all right.
I tell you what, I'm all for them. I'll give some of them away. I'll give several $100 away to people like that, and I'm glad to do it.
Now, I told that story at the NWTF convention a few times, and Ernie Calandrelli was born on the 21st, so he's right in there as well. I don't know if
right in there. I saw Ernie at the show. I'm telling you, again, going to the National Wild Turkey Convention, Mark, I think I've been to every one of them. I went to the 15 year ago, I was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and that's where it was held.
How about it?
I've been to I don't know if I missed one. I'm trying to think, you know, and I don't remember missing one.
You'd have to be one of very few people that could say that. Perhaps two or three. Yes.
Yeah. I tell you, I enjoy it. It's a homecoming. Somebody asked me, what do you like about this convention? It's a homecoming. I get to see all my friends, old friends, and meet a lot of new friends.
It's like a family reunion. You're exactly right. That's why I go there, to see everybody. And goodness gracious, every night you look up at your watch and it's midnight or 1 o'clock. You don't know how the day went so fast, but you're seeing so many of your friends. It's unreal. Just I was talking to Jeff Probst this morning. He couldn't be there this year, and he told me to tell you hello. He said, "Harold."
Well, I didn't see Jeff. I usually see Jeff, and he's another good guy. I like all them people like Jeff. He's a good call maker.
Yes, he is.
It sounds like guy. I need to go next year, Mark. Mark's hounded me to go every year, and I couldn't make it this year, but I'm going to go ahead and just box it out now.
If it's not,
go, brother.
If it's not the best, most friendly outdoor show in the country, I don't know what is. There is not a better show than the National Wild Turkey Federation's annual convention. It is the best.
It does my heart so much good to see all the young people there, too.
100%. It's awesome.
Kids there. And
not only that, and Harold will attest to this, like if you're a turkey hunter and you're seeking to perhaps start hunting other states, you go to that convention, start talking around, all of a sudden you're going to get invites from everybody you can imagine. Well, come, let's trade a hunt. Let's go here. Let's go there. Like, turkey hunters are nice. They'll invite you to hunt. And I'd bet money Harold's been to places from invitations he's had at that convention.
Absolutely have. I have.
Yeah.
I saw a guy came by from Nebraska, and for 2 years ago, Michael Waddell and David and I went up and hunted with him. And he come by, and it's just good to see them people and telling me how their turkeys are doing. Is it better or worse, you know? And that's what I like to talk to them about. Is you resource your turkeys good, you have a good hatch, and you know I love to talk turkey with people, and we certainly had a crowd there. I don't know how many thousands was there, but my gosh, I couldn't believe how many turkey hunters it is in the United States.
There's a bunch, man. It was well over 60,000, I think I heard. And
wow.
That brings up a good point. If somebody's inviting you turkey, my first question to them is, how was last season? Were you seeing a lot of jakes? And I always pay attention to that. They say, oh, yeah, there were jakes everywhere last year. That means you're probably going into a lot of 2-year-olds, you know.
Old Mark knows, old Mark knows how to keep up with them jakes because he knows they're going to be gobblers next year to turn the woods up.
100%.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I need to get out to that show next year. Mark, we just need to do a 10-foot booth for the Turkey OG series and just use it as a spot to record and catch up with people and make it a podcast.
Dude, you wouldn't imagine how many you'd get out of that show. It's just it's the best show there ever was.
You could really do good there. I'm telling you.
And part of it is the magic of Opryland Hotel as well, because that's where it's held in that convention center. And Opryland's it's like going home. You know, it's just an amazing structure to go see. If you've never been there, I'd highly recommend going to that show next year.
Awesome.
You know, Opryland Hotel is one of the very few places that can handle this convention and handle it right. They've got all the resources there to do it with. Just like I left the floor here the day, thousands of people walking the floor and went to the calling contest, and you couldn't put another person in the room. And I don't know how many, there's probably 1,000 or 2 people in there, and upstairs in a room. And it just blew my mind. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. And how about the quality of the callers these days? That's another tip that we could offer you. If you go on YouTube or go to the National Wild Turkey Federation's page on Facebook, they've got the calling competitions all posted. So you could go to the Grand National Open Championship finals and listen to the best callers in the world, and you'll learn the rhythms and the sounds. And there's guys up there on stage right now that absolutely would outcall a live hen. That Matt Van Sice and those guys are unreal how accurate they are with their calling.
I tell you what, it amazed me. I mean, you're exactly right. A live hen couldn't win that contest because she'd make a mistake.
Yeah, she would. Very no doubt.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's cool to word it that way too, actually.
Well, I went up to so many things to see there. You know, you can see so many things. One thing I missed that I didn't see, and my son brought it to my attention, the display they had of Dave Harbor and some of the people that started the National Wild Turkey Federation. Tom Rogers, Jerry Allen, and some of those people that really started this organization. And I was a charter member of it. I remember that. I didn't get to see that, and I missed out on that.
I did not see that, but I read about. They called him Colonel Dave, did they not?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
he's the one that started me in business.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Well, that's. I read about him in Jim Cassada's book. I don't know if you've read that book, but I'm trying. It's Hunting with the Legends or Legends Remembered, but it's a tremendous book. But I read about Colonel Dave in that book.
Well, he is one turkey hunting dude, and I got to tell you, hey, you know, everybody will tell you about if I die, I'd like to die tagging a turkey. I'd like to die holding a big deer up that I just shot, or an elk. Dave Harbor died tagging a turkey.
No kidding.
And, yeah, and that was pretty unique. I've hunted with Dave lots of times, and he was one. He wasn't a good caller, but he was a dang good hunter. And I'll take that good hunting over any good calling. And that's what he was. He had that woodsmanship, and knew how to act around a turkey. And he killed him.
I remembered the name of that book. It's called Remembering the Greats by Jim Cassida, and he's one of them in there. And it's just a phenomenal book if you like history at all. It's probably the best book I've written about wild turkeys, or not written but read. It's unbelievable. So
yeah, I've had the opportunity to hunt with Jim just like you have, Cassida. And is he still living?
He is. I called his phone the other day. I thought he was. I called it. It's a landline. He doesn't do cell phones. And, buddy, it was like 20 years ago when I called him. He answered. He goes, Jim Cassida. And I said, how are you doing, Jim? You ought to call him, Harold. It was a great conversation to visit with him. He's sharp as he can be.
One of the most memorable turkey hunts I went on one time was with him. And I was hunting. I run into a show. Some game wardens from Indiana was helping me. We was filming. And Jim was going to be on the show. And we called these turkeys up, and I let Jim and the cameraman stay at the place, and we sort of got behind them what I did with the game warden. And Jim shot, and, you allowed one turkey in the state of Indiana. And these two game wardens, and when Jim shot, turkey gobbled at him, and he shot again. I said, the game warden said, what is he doing? I said, well, he's killing two turkeys. And they like to come apart. Of course, what he did, he missed that turkey and killed him the second shot. but I had him convinced he done shot two turkeys. But that was a remember hunt. I can remember. When you said his name, I can remember back some of the hunts we went on.
Yep, Jim was one of the most prolific turkey writers out there, previous editor of Turkey Hunter magazine, and just one of the good guys. I'll share a quick story about Jim that Harold's going to get a kick out of. Me and Steve Stoltz were hunting with Jim, and I think we were in Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, and Jim always ran a wing bone. Well, Jim would have almost a wind-up like a pitcher would to get that wing bone in the right position and then finally get it to his mouth. So you always knew he was going to call about 3 or 4 seconds before he called. So Stevie and I were behind him. And Jim, if you were hunting with Jim, he was going to call, whether you were with the World Championship caller or whatever. If he's with Harold Knight, he's going to call. If he's with Don Ship, he's going to call. If he's with Preston Pittman, he's going to call, right? So he's out in front of me and Stevie, and Steve and I would alternate back and forth. Like Jim wanted to put that wing bone up to his mouth, and he'd go through his wind-up and get his arms kind of moving, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's at his lips. And about the time he'd touch his lips, one of the two of us would call, and then we'd kind of turn away like we were looking for one to call, or for one to gobble back. And we did that, I'll bet you, 5 minutes, and never would let that man call. And he finally turned around and he goes, "You two SOBs," he started yelling at us. Oh, we stood there and laughed in that road. My goodness, did we laugh. He was so mad because we wouldn't let him call.
His story.
That's awesome. Mark, I pulled up that book online. Sporting Classics Store has it in stock. They got 12 of them left.
Yep, that's Jim. That's him.
Yeah, it's the Remembering the Greats, Profiles of Turkey Hunting's Old Masters.
Yeah, you could call Jim directly and buy it, and I'll just give you his number because he sells them right there out of his house. And Harold, I sent you his contact information, but his number, if you want to buy it from Jim directly, is 803-329-4354.
That's awesome.
Yep,
yes,
and he is a world-class gentleman like Harold. He's awesome.
Oh my gosh, he is.
He'd probably sign it, too, if anybody wanted to call that and buy one, don't you think?
He signs them all.
See, That's awesome. That's very cool. I love it. Those old stories, to me, are like my favorite thing about just talking with, the quote-unquote OGs of hunting. I like just hearing the stuff that you just don't normally hear or get to tap into with people a lot of the times. Is just like the start of things and old, just random hunting stories. I enjoyed that the most.
I'll tell you another one, and I don't remember the exact joke, but David Hale and Harold and myself and Chuck Jones and Tad, and there was a bunch of us sitting in a hotel room. I believe it was a rainy day in Warsaw, Missouri, and David told a joke to me, and he had me hook, line, and sinker about a dog that ran out of gas, and I'm sure Harold can remember that one. But I mean, for 25 years, every time David saw me, he goes, hey, Drury, have that dog run out of gas yet? God, dog, did he have me hook, line, and sinker, though. And that joke went on, and I fell for the punchline. He got me, but boy, I'll never forget that till the day I die.
I saw Tad Brown at the turkey convention. I asked him had he run out of gas.
Yeah, you go. Oh, we've been blessed, Harold. We've been blessed.
Oh, we have. We really have, Mark. I tell you what, don't take it for granted that when you get my age, that he's got to give you another turkey season. I really cherish him. I tell you that. And I'm looking forward to this turkey season. I've already got a lot of people lined up to take. I try to take somebody that's never turkey hunted or killed a turkey, and that's always one of my goals, to try to get somebody each year to kill his first turkey. And it's not about me. It's about trying to get somebody to kill the first turkey or enjoy it, start him in the sport of turkey hunting. My gosh, what a sport. That's all I can say.
Amen. It's so many pleasures. You can't talk about turkey hunting without smiling. Rob Keck came in and hunted with me last spring in Iowa, and my goodness, there wasn't enough time in the day to sit and talk about turkey hunting and the history and people and all that Rob had done. And he was on this series as well, part of this OG series. But when you get around other turkey hunters, there's no lack of conversation. I'll say that. It was one of the most awesome hunts I ever had, just sitting there talking to Rob about the history and how he got into it and everything. And it, like Harold said, once you catch that fever, you can't get rid of it.
Oh, Rob was fun too, Harold. He had me wondering whether or not I should interview him or not right off the rip. He started messing with me, and him and Mark kind of like conned against me. Remember that, Mark?
Oh, yeah. I remember.
And he's like, who are you and how long is this going to take? And I'm like, oh, man, this guy's going to be tough to talk to. Well, then he's like, I'm just messing with you, Curt. He kept calling me, what was it? Kirk. Yeah. And who are you? And I'm like, oh, man, this is going to be tough. I was already intimidated, you know. I'm glad he did it.
Rob Keck is a good hunter and a hard hunter.
Yes, he is.
A serious hunter. He really is.
And he's good at it. You can tell he's worked about thousands of turkeys. Boy, I just went back and listened and enjoyed it. It was awesome for me.
I got to talk to his wife Susan and some of his grandkids at the convention, and Rob, and he's got 5 grandkids. I thought that's pretty good. I said, man, that changes your whole life on hunting when you get these grandkids.
Oh boy, big time! I'm anxious to have my first one. Can't wait. April's a good month because turkey season's in and baseball starts. That's another thing Harold and I have in common. We're both huge St. Louis Cardinals fans, so every time we see each other, we talk more about baseball than we do hunting. Actually,
that's like when I get. You're exactly right. When Mark and Terry get together, we talk about the St. Louis Cardinal baseball. But, you know, Mr. Fox, I got to mention Mr. Fox from Osceola. He's one of the guys I dearly love. And he come to the convention when he did. Toxie would come get me and said, Daddy wants to talk to you. Everybody thought we was talking about turkey hunting. We never mentioned turkey hunting. We were talking about Mississippi State baseball and squirrel hunting. And because that's what he likes, you know. Of course, he likes turkey hunt too. And he's a dang good turkey hunter. But that's what we talk about.
That's awesome.
God bless.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Harold. I think this was awesome. I love this series. I had to learn so much, and it's an honor to sit between Mark and these legends of turkey hunting. So I'm just glad that I can be a part of this in what little way I can. I'm the green rookie at all of this right here, and there's probably some people listening like, what's that guy doing? I don't deserve to be in the conversation sometimes, you know.
Well, you did a great job asking questions and a good listener, and that's part of it. And I tell you what, I want to leave people with this. I don't have all the answers, I can tell you. Them suckers humble me every year, and I hope they humble me again this year. I really do, because that means I'm going to get out there and get with them. and I just hope that they make me sit down and say, now, what do I need to do next to get a turkey in range? And that's part of turkey hunting.
Yes, it is. God bless you, Harold Knight. We appreciate you taking the time. Give our best to David. We appreciate you and love you, brother. Thank you.
All right. I thank y'all for letting me be a part of this. I appreciate that.
Of course, Harold. Of course. And I'm looking forward to meet you. I'll be at the turkey show next year, and we'll finally get to shake hands, and that's going to be a good time. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this series. Hope you enjoyed the first installment of the Turkey OG series this year. We got a handful of great episodes coming, so hope you keep enjoying them and getting fired up for turkey season coming in hot. So thank you, everyone, so much. I can't remember what I closed with last year. Go kill a long beard or something, Mark, but normally I say go shoot a giant.
I think you just say go kill your gobbler. That'd be great.
We'll just go with that. Go kill you a gobbler. Thanks for tuning in.